Remy, welcome to the Nifty Travel Podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. I love the intro song. It's very dreamy. But yeah, thank you for reaching out and providing this opportunity.
Yeah, no worries. And one thing I always like to start asking my guests is about what your earliest memories of travel are.
Mm. Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, for me, I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, here in the Midwest in the United States, and fortunately, my parents they'd take us on like trips to Disney World. I remember growing up, I probably went there about 3 times as early as like 3 or 4 years old. And obviously, as a kid, that's a dream experience to go out to that um, amusement park, and obviously using your imagination and Disney's always done a great job of inspiring. So those are probably the earliest of days out in Orlando, Florida.
Cool. So, did that give you a clue that you might like travel in the future, or was it a little ways ahead of you?
Yeah, I had no idea, to be honest. We'll dive into it more, but honestly, my travel journey really took off like back in 2021, and even more so last year in May. So it took a little bit of time to like sink in that was a path or an opportunity for me.
Mm. So, so what was your gig, as they say, before you discovered travel?
Yeah, I mean, I've had quite the journey. 25 years now, but like I said, I grew up in Ohio. My kind of claim to, I guess, uh, opportunity and abundance in my life was through a clothing brand I started in 2018 called Virtual. It was a futuristic tech wear brand with a mission to inspire current and future generations to maximize their potential. And so that's when I really started to learn the power of community, the power of content creation and marketing, storytelling. Was also in sales at the time. I was selling luxury vehicles, but what really kicked off the travel kick in 2021 after COVID was moving to San Diego, California. Had never lived anywhere else. Had never really been to the West Coast, to be honest, as well. I'd taken a trip out there earlier in 2021 in March, fell in love with it. If you've been to San Diego, like San Diego is one of the most beautiful places in the United States. There's an abundance of nature and just health and wellness, which I was really attracted towards as someone that's really grounded in mindfulness. Um, and from there too, there's so many little spots that you can travel to. Mexico's right across the border, 30 minutes south. You've got LA, you've got places like Joshua Tree, um, the Grand Canyon. So once I got out to the West Coast, I was like, oh, like this world's so big. I was a big fish in a small pond. And then going out to San Diego, I was like, oh, no one knows me, no one knows what I've done, no one really even cares. So that was a very like transformative experience.
So, how was it different from growing up in Ohio then?
My goodness. I mean, Ohio's a small state. Columbus is one of the fastest growing cities actually in the United States, but obviously not at the rate that the West Coast or California is. I mean, it's just a lot more of like a small town type of feel. We don't have like the nature and abundance of like different activities that you can do, which is something I truly loved about San Diego and California. But um, if you've heard like people in the Midwest are extremely friendly, I think it's a great, like, at least for my own sake, like it was a great city to like build a strong foundation of skills and relationships. It was a kind of a launch pad. If you can become successful in Columbus, very much so you can go and be successful in anywhere else in the world. And I've seen that time and time again with some of my relationships People that are now in California, Tokyo, Bali, traveling the world. So a lot different though. California is very chill, very relaxed vibes there, which was really fun.
Is it true what they say that every state in the US is like a separate country?
100%. Yeah, I think every state has their own just like philosophy for governing, and also just like their own um, attributes that attract specific people for different reasons. So,
Yeah. Well, as you said, it's a big country, isn't it? And worthwhile exploring. And in terms of exploring, you've recently come back recently from Mexico. What was that like?
yeah, I think I've spent the most amount of time than any other country I've visited in Mexico. I just got back from Tulum specifically. I was there, which what felt like a couple months. Very transformative experience. If you're not familiar with Tulum, it's in the um, like south east part of the Mexican Gulf Coast, um, and it's not a big area, but the energy there is massive. Tulum is one of the chakra energy points of the world. It's known for being one of the top wellness hubs in the world. People go there to learn about healing, yoga, fitness, you know, um, dietitians. So it was amazing. Some of the most blue water and oceans that I've ever swam in. Extremely warm temperature. Yeah, it was a beautiful experience. I miss it a lot and excited to get back there when things align.
Mm. So I read on the website that I believe you're connected to in some respect that that part of Mexico is is possibly a good place that millennials and Gen Zs like to go. Would you say that it is such a place?
Yeah, I would say 100%. You definitely see a lot of younger people going out there, especially entrepreneurs. I think there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of digital nomads going to Tulum from all over the globe. I've met people from France, Germany, the Caribbean, people from the States as well. I think, I was there in January as well, too, during peak season. It's a hot spot. It's become a huge hot spot. Tulum is very similar. I haven't been to Bali, but they compare it to Bali very closely. And if you're an entrepreneur, you're someone that loves to travel, if you love the ocean, if you love exploration, if you love meeting new people from different backgrounds, Tulum's a great spot to check out.
So, what do you think makes it particularly good for nomadic travelers?
Yeah, I mean, I think it offers like this strong balance between like one, like in general, like the aesthetic. Um, the aesthetic is like no other. The architecture in Tulum is like 10, 20 years in advance than the rest of the world. You really can't go somewhere else and find architectural design similar. I think it really offers new perspective to people in that environment because of that. Um, there's also, like I was saying, like just an abundance of entrepreneurial opportunities within real estate, crypto, health and wellness, healing, tons of cafes, tons of spaces to live and work. And then just like the proximity to what they call cenotes or the Mayan ruins, the pyramids. You're super close to Mexico City, but it's a forever growing, town. Like there's so much construction going on. I can't wait to see what it looks like in the next 5 to 10 years because it won't look how it looks now. So it's really early days, and I think it's a great time to get in at the ground floor of Tulum.
Oh, it sounds like a very modern and growing location, then, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
So, why do you think people go there for, say, wellness? Is it a very calming place to go and visit?
Yeah, it's a great question. Tulum has like two extremes from what I've experienced. When things are great in Tulum. And I think there's this other like dark side to Tulum as well, because there is so much energy. There's so many people claiming to be these like healers. If you get surrounded by the wrong people, I think you can also have a challenging experience. And I've experienced both sides of that spectrum. Um, I would say like a big part of the reason for like the wellness and the healing is dates back thousands of years back with the Mayans. The Mayans obviously like are a massively impactful tribe in Mexico. And they had a lot of their just roots and ancestry in Tulum. So it has like just that energy. And the cenotes, if you're not familiar with the cenote, it's basically these pools that were created from, I believe it was like asteroids or meteorites, um, that then the Mayans would use to sacrifice people or animals or whatever it may be. So there's a lot of like spiritual energy there, which I think gives other people that inspiration, that power to continue practicing there.
So you talked about ancient peoples that lived there. Does that mean that there are still examples of the life they used to live, or perhaps ancient cities that people can go and discover?
Yeah, I mean, I wish personally I did more of that exploration, but two of the spots I've been to, one is the Mayan ruins. Essentially, that was like, um, I think at one point, like homes, like living spaces, battlegrounds. That's super close to the coast in Tulum. But then you also have Chichen Itza, which is the famous pyramids about 2 hours inland, closer to Cancun. I'd highly recommend checking out and exploring that area as well. It's got a massive cenote there, a ton of cenotes around, but um, and then they still, I think the music, the fashion, the culture very much so embodies the ancestry of that area as well.
Mm, fantastic. It seems like a place to get both the modern and the ancient.
100%. Yeah, it's a nice blend for sure.
Now, in terms of places that people can go to, I mean, there's more choices today for traveling than ever. Do you think people perhaps don't go to certain destinations because they don't? There's some sort of misunderstanding. Do you think people face some kind of blocking?
Yeah, I mean, especially in the United States, I don't know how it is for other countries, but unfortunately, like the media for a long time has basically like um, just like muddied up the name for certain countries and just like created this misbelief system, especially for Americans, as to like danger and lack of safety in certain countries. And I'll be completely honest, like that was probably a fear of mine as well. Before I started traveling, I had a buddy of mine. He's one of my best friends, Patrick Sweetman. I remember in 2020, he moved to Thailand for 8 months, and that was a huge ordeal for me. I was like, whoa, like I don't know if I could ever do that, and I think knowing that he went and did that and survived, that was like a big thing in my head. It was like, all right, not only is this guy in Thailand, but he's thriving. He's having a beautiful experience. He's growing. But unfortunately, like the media does a really bad job of trying to keep their people within their borders. And I think that's just um, I don't know. You live so much more when you travel and you experience different parts of the world. You grow so much more. You become so much more authentic by putting yourselves in those positions. Are you going to be challenged sometimes that you travel? Absolutely. I think that's the beauty of travel. You face new challenges and new environments, but you got to break through those mental barriers and those limited beliefs that have been bestowed on us for a long time.
Mm. And yet, when you look on social media these days, there's just so much information on there. And of course, the whole premise of social media these days is to, well, they call it giving people a great experience, but a lot of it is about channeling people towards common, should we say, in travel terms anyway, towards going to common destinations. And I thought, if everybody only picks common or popular destinations, those places are going to be extremely busy, and everywhere else is going to have no one at all. Do you think that's somebody told me the other week that actually this is something that millennials and Gen Zs are doing a lot more of? Do you think they're missing out?
I I think maybe for the vast majority, absolutely. Um, I mean, we can just use like Tulum in like Mexico for an example, right? As someone that's in the States, and I've even had this, at no one's fault, just based off the information they're consuming. Like Mexico's this dangerous place. Like Tulum is like this dangerous location, and I've now spent over a month there, and it's like that what you think is what you attract. If you're going somewhere with this mindset of fear, that's the exact thing that you're going to receive while you're there. And I think for a lot of people, that's what's holding them back. And they also feel like they have to go with other people. I think that's also what's going to hold people back from travel. You're going to be waiting a long time if you have friends that aren't excited about travel, and solo travel, I think, is one of the most transformative experiences of them all. Putting yourself somewhere you don't know, with people you don't know, with languages you don't speak, with food you don't eat. So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity for that to increase rather than the typical, let's go to LA, let's go to New York, let's go to Miami, let's, maybe it's London, maybe it's Paris. These are all amazing locations, don't get me wrong, but there's just so much more out there.
Absolutely. So it sounds like you've sampled and like independent travel yourself. So can you pick a few locations that have really sort of either changed or surprised you?
Yeah.
I knew it'd be a hard question.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I'll say like so, and I'd love to share just kind of my like nomadic journey too, to create context and set the scene. I was in San Diego for 2 years, and in July of last year, I essentially got a letter in the mail saying, "Hey, like if you get another noise complaint, and I'm a DJ, I've been DJing for a couple years, you're gonna get an eviction," and that increased and sped up my timeline of becoming a nomad, and like that. Literally from that day I got that note, 2 weeks later, I sold all of my belongings in San Diego, sold my car, got on a 12-hour flight to Paris for a work conference, told my boss, "Hey, I'm going to stay in Europe for about a month and a half." So that's what kicked off my journey with travel. Paris was my first, I guess, in another continent, like travel in Europe. Um, I would say like the location that maybe surprised me the most was Sicily. Prior to going to Sicily, I was in Ibiza for 3 days. As you can imagine, like a lot of young people going to Ibiza, you're probably going to party, you're probably listening to some house music. I definitely lived that experience, and I needed to go somewhere that I could relax and just like decompress. Um, I didn't have a plane when I was traveling. I was on Airbnb, and I saw this Airbnb in Sicily, and it was up in the mountains. It had like its own organic vineyard, organic garden, and that's where I traveled to next. I was there for a week. I ended up meeting some of my mentors there. They were the hosts. Um, they showed me the beautiful location of Sicily and Lingua Grossa, which is the town that I stayed in. The people were very warm, you know, um, and ended up like DJing a set in the town and Sicily as well. But I guess the reason it surprised me was like probably the people that I met and the connections that I made there. I didn't expect to walk away with such a transformative and profound connections, and just hospitality more than anything. I felt very welcome there. I felt wanted to be there, and I've been in locations where I've not felt that before when I've traveled. So
I think the Italians have a very strong family culture, don't they? Um, I only went to Sicily once. I stayed in a place called Taormina, which is near an active volcano. Did you
Yep.
did you have a chance to step on some hot rocks?
I didn't go that high up, but I did do a little bit of hiking by the volcano. What was it? What was the name of it again? I'm trying to.
I'll get it wrong. I think it was. I was going to say Etna, but I think I'm talking the wrong country. But
That sounds right. That sounds right.
So, in terms of destinations generally, I'll give you an example. I've had several chats with people who refer to South America as like a continent of mystery, and it's also has preconceptions. Do you think there are places that could be considered as hidden, hidden gems? They're kind of undersold. Have you come across places like that? Perhaps you've been to some of them.
Yeah, that's another really good one. I mean, I feel like I'm still pretty early on in my travel journey, but I was in the Azores for 2 months this year. It's an island off of Portugal, off the coast. It's honestly like halfway between Europe and halfway between the United States. You can take it direct from Boston. I was there for 2 months. It's got a population, I think, of like 70,000. They say there's more cows than people there. I had a friend from Columbus, Ohio. Her family moved to the Azores, and that's how it became on my radar. I started seeing Instagram reels for the location. I would say, like you were kind of saying, like referring to like that mystical vibe in South America I've yet to experience, but this island very much so had that same energy, if you will. I don't know many people that have been there, but I highly recommend. It was such a beautiful time connecting to nature, and my partner was actually out there with me as well for a month, and we experienced just some of the greater good of nature during that time.
So, what can you expect to see on the Azores that's perhaps unique to the location then?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, cows is big. You know,
No shortage of beef then, no.
yeah. But they're known like for their like beautiful lakes. They have this hike that's called the 8 lakes, I believe, and it's like these two it's like these lakes that kind of make an 8 shape. And it's absolutely stunning. It's like within these like round boulders, these mountains that have these like rims that honestly someone from the Azores showed me a video of like these rally vehicles driving on it, which was baffling to me. It seemed like the most dangerous thing you could possibly do on the island, but very much so the nature, the mountains, the ocean. I feel like that really stood out. And then they have this like really unique bar called Otrolato, which is where made most of my friendships there with people from all over the world. So yeah, it was a really special experience.
Mm, sounds like it. So you've been to one or two countries. So how would you describe yourself? Are you someone who needs to plan everything, or are you a spontaneous organizer?
Yeah, I've learned it's a hybrid. I would lean more towards the spontaneous aspect. I think leaving space for something bigger than yourself to guide you will take you where you're supposed to be versus having everything planned out. And also as a traveler, like I've been fortunate to be in places for longer than a week, longer than a month, some places 3 months. And when you're there for that long, you truly get to immerse yourself not only with the location, but the community. So, um, a lot of that just going with the flow led to so many friendships and beautiful stories.
And stories are very important in our lives. Um, how important do you think storytelling is in the sense of traveling?
Yeah, it's essential. I think I was, I was just talking to a colleague of mine prior to this, and he was talking about this quote from Alex Hermosi, and he was like, "In my 20s, I want to become a millionaire." And when he was in his 30s and he became a millionaire, he wishes he was in his 20s. And I think that just goes to speak about our life experiences and what we're focusing on. Um, I very much so in my 20s in the past couple of years focus on building the most beautiful and crazy and fun experiences. And I have a lot of stories that I can share, and those stories create a deeper connection to the people that I'm meeting.
Mm. And do you think it could be used as a tool to encourage people that perhaps are less sure of whether they should go traveling themselves? Do you think you could use your stories to help other people become better travelers?
Absolutely, 100%. I very much so use LinkedIn, which we connected on, which super honored for that, and Instagram to tell those stories. I'm someone that's always been very vulnerable as a creator and storyteller. Not only the good, of the experience, but also the rawness, the challenges, the struggles that I faced. I think people need to realize like that will not be avoided as a traveler, but that shouldn't hinder you from traveling, because challenges are only opportunities.
Absolutely. So when it comes to the art, shall we call it the art of traveling, what advice would you give to other travelers?
Yeah, I would say like from what I've learned and I'm proud of my partner and myself in Tulum. We exercise this in a much greater way is like groundedness. Being present while you're traveling will enhance your experience greatly. My first season of travel very much so a chicken with its head cut off, just going wherever the wind took me rather than flowing with the wind in the direction I believed I needed to go. And your trips can be what you make of it, but you really need to have an intention behind it. um, and I think that that really goes towards like nomads that are like living and traveling as well. I think it's a little bit more challenging to be grounded when you're somewhere for a week. You're really like there to explore and do as much as you can. You're not really necessarily like consciously thinking about your body or your health or your wellness as much as you should. Um, I would say that's like one of the biggest ones I would share is like really prioritize groundedness and your routine? What are the things you're doing at home that are connecting you to yourself? Why can't you do that while you're traveling?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot more that you can do from anywhere now, isn't there? I think the internet has changed that phenomenally. Now, changing tack slightly. Um, Now, the way people travel uh, may be described as similar, but the technology we use to travel is constantly changing, isn't it? And one thing that the British and the French always used to get excited about was supersonic aircraft. We built one and then famously abandoned it about 20 years ago. But now there's an American company, I think they're called Boom, um, who who are like 3 or 4 flights into testing a new supersonic aircraft, which they hope will lead to faster travel again.
Mm.
What do you think about the possibilities of the return of supersonic travel?
I'm all here for it. I mean, let's the supersonic travel, like might as well add in teleportation. I would love to be able to get to more beautiful destinations at um a quick like faster speed. I think that can be a challenge for sure with um travel in general. It's just like the time it takes to get to these destinations. I'm gearing myself up for a Southeast Asia tour in 2025, but the reason I haven't gone out there yet is definitely a timing thing and time difference as well. So
Yeah. So yeah, well, Southeast Asia, yeah, I mean, it's a very vibrant area, and in many respects, it's uh, experiencing a lot of growth. So one of the things that I see that you're interested in is federal aviation. Um, so tell me a bit about that.
yeah, absolutely. I kind of going back to 2018 with my clothing brand. I've always been a big um, just fan and believer of strong marketing, strong content creation. I've always worked with some of the top content creators in the world, and a lot of those people use drones. Um, and actually, my girl Elise, we met back in February, and she had her own drone as well. And one of the second times we hung out, we got to use that and create some beautiful content, and that really inspired me to buy a drone and pursue my license, along with a buddy of mine as well, Jaden. He's one of the top drone real estate photographers in Breckenridge, Colorado. So I had some people in my life and some creators that I worked with prior as well that were big into drone photography, aerial footage, FPV photography as well. And rather than me relying on other creators to use those tools, I said, I want to take this and learn it for myself so that I'm not having to wait. I'm not having to pay. I want to do this on my own, especially as someone that's traveling constantly. So I'd say for 3 months, I studied with Elise to get our drone license. The first time we didn't pass, it was way harder than we thought it was going to be. There's a lot of questions on there about actual like airspace and laws and regulations that pilots need to learn to fly. Um, it was a written test. A lot of people ask me like, "Oh, like, do you have to like perform an exercise?" It's like, no, you have to learn like 15 sections about the FAA. And so, um, past that course, I think it was maybe a month or two ago. Now we're both building a business called Release. I'm Remy, she's Elise. Combine that, that's Release. And essentially, we're partnering with luxury and wellness brands to create cinematic content. A lot of that is through drone footage, camera, FPV, drone footage as well. So that's what's kind of been like a new chapter, or just like a new opportunity, new venture that we've been stepping into, which has been awesome.
So yeah, well, tell me a bit about well, what was the process that you've had to go through to decide, well, what technology, what kind of camera you're going to use? Well, let's start with that, because there's just so much out there, isn't there? How do you even choose one?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, fortunately, like DJI Global, they're one of the top drone companies in the United States. I mean, all over the globe, to be honest. Um, I had already known so many people that had used that brand, recommended that brand, especially as a starter, for someone that's just getting into flying drones. So um, I'd gotten what's called the DJI Mini 4 Pro. It's a professional drone. It's light. It's easy to travel with. Takes great photos. So, and then I also have the Avata 2, and the Avata 2 is probably my preferred instrument, if you will. It essentially is like a bird, with a camera on it, and you can fly it any type of way and direction that you want. Um, FPV stands for first person view. You're literally wearing a headset, you have a controller, um, and it's like meditation for me, but it captures such beautiful footage. And I think seeing other content on Instagram and other big creators, even movies, right? Some of your favorite movies are using these type of equipment, probably a lot more professional or more expensive or more technical, but and then my partner is using a Sony A7 III for, the more standard camera footage, as well too. And she flies drones as well with the DJI Mavic 3, which is kind of a step up from the Mini 4 Pro.
So yeah, so having got into it, did you learn from other people, or is it like another extension of the? You said you had to pass a license, but what else did you have to do?
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of just experimentation, just like anything really new. Like um, using like surf. I'm not a surfer, but like surfing, for example, back in San Diego, if you're new to that sport, you're probably going to suck at it. And so we've kind of gone through that period of sucking at flying the drone and creating content, but consistently like working on the craft, working on the practice, getting opportunities to work with actual brands, which is what we were doing out in Tulum. Um, and just like continuing to like watch YouTube videos, watch footage, of other creators with drone footage and camera footage, and following our favorite brands. Like, what are the transitions that they're using, the angles that they're using, really like studying from the greats so that we can implement that in our work.
So would you say that in order to be a drone user, then you have to have a much greater awareness?
100%. I mean, having awareness is essential, because when you're flying a drone, you're not flying in just open, empty airspace, right? There's going to be objects, buildings, people around you, right? So you need to constantly be checking your surroundings. And even more so with the FPV, um, you almost have to have like a spotter, or what we call it a visual observer, by you to give you a heads up of what could be in your flight path that you can't see. So that's probably one of my favorite parts is that experience, because you're just so locked into that and only that thing.
I've listened to pilots describing how they prepare for flights. It's like they don't just. No pilot ever sits in a cockpit, do they, and just says, "Well, we're off." it's everything is planned. So how have you sort of built that into what what you like doing now?
Yeah. Um, it's a great question. I think I'm still developing that process, to be honest. With the FPV specifically, I'm starting to do like walkthroughs of the shots, like literally visualizing like the flight path that I want to take and then executing it. Um, but I'm a very like meditative person. Uh, that's a practice that I implement daily. So I think that really helps when I do go out and fly. I think I can drop in immediately.
So the fun stuff, of course, then is what you actually see and what you photograph. So how has the world changed now that you see it like a bird?
Yeah, it's a it's a great question. I think it's something still to reflect on. I think I'm still so like early in the journey, but to be able to capture, you know, the palm trees, the ocean, the mountains in such a way and be so close to it like visually as well and share that with the world is such a blessing. Um yeah, there's just so much more out there, and to be able to capture it from a different perspective, I think can be very inspiring for other creators and other travelers.
So as have there been things that you've said to yourself that is really impactful? I never thought this would look like that.
Um, I'm not really sure. I feel like yeah, I'm not really sure on that one. I think I still have yet to like fly in a place that I'm like overly wowed by. Um yeah, I think especially with FPV, I only got that like 2 months ago. So yeah, soon though, I will definitely let you know, and you'll see the footage when I'm like, wow, this is special.
Well, I tell you an experience I went to when I went to, I think it was Universal Studios, and they actually trained um, a bird to fly into a wind machine, and they took pictures of it and
Mm,
they showed it live, and it was extraordinary to see a bird in flight at such close quarters. Um, and I would describe that as wow, um, because they look so graceful and it looks so normal and natural. It's almost like when they're flying, that's the thing they are meant to do. It's like they're sitting in an armchair, just
mm,
observing the world around them.
yeah, that's incredible. I mean, birds are. I'd say whenever there's a bird that's being captured on drone footage, that's like some of the most beautiful shots. Just like because it's not forced, you know, it's not timing necessarily. It's just nature, like kind of giving you a kiss and allowing them to flow through with your drone as well. And I think that sounds like a beautiful experience.
And Mexico is not a million miles away from another Caribbean island. And one of the things that struck me about it was that um, the birds were incredibly exotic.
Mm.
Um, are there similar exotic birds that come and are curious enough to come and see what we're up to?
Yeah, I I definitely heard some very exotic birds, especially during my time in Tulum in the Azores. I was really hoping I could see a toucan because I've yet to see one of those birds. But yeah, I think still to find out, still finding out.
Yeah, fantastic. So I wanted to get your opinion on a few things about actually the act of traveling, because we've been talking a lot about destinations, but of course, destinations are not possible without ever going on a journey. So, well, I suppose quickly ask you, what's more important to you, the journey or the destination?
Yeah, and I would say the journey for sure. Um, I I think the journey, focusing more on the journey, will guide you to the right destination. Um, but yeah, I think in relation to like actual travel, though, um, I don't know. When it comes to flying, I'm just wanting to get to the destination. I'm not a huge fan of the long flights, but when you're on a plane for like 12 plus hours, you're definitely uh you're earning those experiences.
Well, it's certainly an experience if you've not been on an aeroplane for a very long time. Um, living on the edge of Europe as a kid, nothing was less than 4 or 5 hours away. And the first time I travelled out to the Far East, it was a real eye opener to get into double digits. um, so, in terms of the travel experience, do you ever see people at airports, for instance, that are lost? And do you feel like that perhaps you're the only one that isn't lost? Um, what sort of experiences have you had when traveling with lots of other people around?
Yeah, and when you say lost, like, what do you mean by that?
Well, I always think that the majority of people you see at the airport aren't. They're just not used to the experience. They don't go there very often, and it's as if they don't know from the moment they walk in the front door. They don't know what's happening next.
Yeah, I think that's a super fair assessment and observation. I mean, I would probably just agree with that. Yeah, I think the airport can be very overwhelming. Um, Not like, especially in other countries that might be in different languages or just operate differently. I think it can be a very like overwhelming experience of getting to the right gate, getting through security. Um, you know, I think obviously people that are doing it more consistently are used to surrendering that experience and allowing what needs to happen and trusting. But yeah, I think overall, I think it can be a very like trying experience for some people that are not doing it as consistently.
Yeah. So, in terms of the experience other travellers might experience, what do you think? Could be better.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think all around, like, I don't know, like communication all around in general. I mean, you always see a lot of like flights get like delayed or like canceled sometimes. I think that's just out of our power though as well. Um, I would almost like preface like other people that are traveling to like worry less about the experience improving and like focus more on cultivating patience and awareness. Like you really can't force that, like you have, I don't know, 40 to 80 people all in the same boat, all in the same experience, trying to get to the same place as well. Just kind of mirroring those ones that know that they don't have the power to control it, and just be excited that you are getting to go on a plane, you are getting to go and travel. Having gratitude for the experience more so than anything is what I would recommend.
Cool. And how do you think travel is going to change in the future?
Yeah, and I think you said it too. Like, I think like it'll be faster as technology advances. I think, yeah, I think I need to reflect on that more for sure, because it's such a unique experience. How will it change? I think like more people will understand the value of the experience. I think more hopeful that more people will start to travel, get out of their hometowns and their comfort zones, and check out more parts of the world. Um, so yeah.
But what would you like to see happen in the future?
Yeah. I don't know. I think just like more community building.
Hmm.
Locations are more focused on like being welcoming to travelers, and like forming powerful and authentic communities within that. I think diversity can only be a positive thing. Um, and I think people that embrace that will win, and will grow, and will have more beautiful lives and experiences if they embrace that.
Well, let's hope that they do. It's a beautiful thing, traveling, um, and we should encourage as many people as possible to embrace it. And talking about things we embrace, um, one thing we have in common that we like doing is podcasting. So tell me a bit about the podcasting you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I currently lead partnerships as well at a recruiting agency in the crypto and blockchain space called Proof of Talent. We interview the top executives, talent leaders, founders in the industry, asking them for their top leadership, hiring, scaling, tips on growth within the industry. I've been very fortunate for my CEO Rob to kind of spearhead that initiative. Um, so yeah, I mean it's kind of just like other aspect of my responsibilities that I do, and yeah, I don't know. I find myself always speaking about something, whether it's in the form of a podcast or Instagram or LinkedIn video. But I think very much so for me, like, and I'm stepping into this brand as the human transformer. My personal brand is someone that just loves to inspire other people to be the best version of themselves. And very much so, the past couple of years of my life have been ignited and accelerated because of travel.
Well, and long may that be the case.
Absolutely excited to continue that and get back out there. 2025 should be a very um, busy yet grounding and peaceful but abundant year. So
And well, do you know where you're going yet?
the sights are set on Bali. That's been a location that my partner and I have been called to for quite some time. If you're familiar with astrocartography, it's basically similar to astrology, but focused on your locations in the world that you're meant to travel to.
Mhm.
Both of ours go right through Bali, and represents a place that would be called home, and just provides a lot of abundant opportunities. So I've never been there before, but I already know I'm gonna love it.
Yeah. Well, I think you will. It's a place that is a favorite of digital nomads. So you're bound to come into connection with many other travelers.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, it seems like a beautiful place. So have you been there as well?
Um, nearest for me would be Australia. That's um, my 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 place, as they say. But of course, I'm biased because I have relatives who live out there.
Nice.
So that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. Well, Remy, it's been absolutely amazing having a chat to you. I could talk to you for hours on travel, and so thank you very much for joining me, and I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors and your travels to come.
Thank you so much for having me on, Alex. It's an honor to just talk about my experiences and share my reflections on travel. And anyone listening, like, don't be afraid to take the leap. You know, if not now, then when? So keep chasing your dreams.
So true. So true. Well, thank you again.
Thanks.